Learned that truth not in the grand chapels of St. Peter's, not in the ceremonial halls where cardinals process in scarlet majesty, but in a narrow corridor beneath the apostolic palace at 3:47 in the morning, when I heard words that would change everything I believed about my sacred duty. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I witnessed. What matters is what they tried to bury. And what matters most is what happened when one man decided that truth was worth more than his own life. This is not the story they tell in Vatican press releases. This is not the sanitized version that appears in official histories. This is the testimony they sealed away, marked never to be disclosed, locked in archives that most cardinals don't even know exist. But tonight, you will hear it all. The Vatican operates on rhythms older than nations. Sunrise prayers, midday audiences, evening vespers, midnight silence. For 6 years I had walked these rhythms as a Swiss guard, moving through the pulse of the Holy See like blood through ancient veins. We were invisible protectors, silent witnesses to history unfolding in real time. They say the Swiss Guard exists to protect the Pope. That's only half true. We also protect the Church from itself, though I didn't understand that, not until the 7th night. Night 1. The first anomaly. My shift began at 2200 hours, as it had 1,000 times before. Passetto di Borgo route, torchlight duty, standard rotation. My partner that week was a younger guard. I'll call him Soldier K. Good man, devout, the kind who actually prayed his rosary during breaks rather than checking his phone. "Quiet tonight," he whispered as we passed the Sistine Chapel entrance. I nodded. Quiet was good. Quiet meant protocol was intact. But quiet can be deceptive. At 23:47, I heard it. And door opening where no door should open at that hour. The entrance to the archives of the Secretariat of State. Restricted access. Cardinals only. Locked after 2000 hours without exception. Yet there it was, a rectangle of golden light spilling into the darkened corridor. And voices. Low. Urgent. Italian spoken too quickly for casual conversation. Soldier K froze beside me, hand instinctively moving toward his halberd. I raised my palm. Wait. We weren't trained to intervene in clerical matters. Our role was observation, protection, presence. Unless violence threatened, we were statues in uniform. But something felt wrong. The voices grew sharper. One of them, I recognized it immediately, belonged to Cardinal Torino, prefect of the Congregation for Bishops, a man of immense influence, personally appointed by the previous pope, holder of keys to episcopal appointments across 3 continents. His tone was not pastoral. It was command. We cannot allow this to continue. The Holy Father's recent appointments undermine decades of careful balance. Another voice, younger, anxious. Your Eminence, if we move too quickly, the optics... Torino cut him off. Optics are managed. What matters is control. We have 4 episcopal conferences on board: Spain, Germany, Belgium, and half of South America. The African cardinals remain problematic. A third voice joined, deeper, measured, cold. Then we isolate them, gradually. Reassignments, diplomatic missions, By the time the consistory convenes, they'll be scattered."
Silence for a beat. Then Torino again. "And the Pope?" The cold voice answered, "He trusts too easily. We use that." Footsteps approached the door. I grabbed Soldier K and pulled him into the shadowed alcove near the St. Damasus courtyard entrance. We pressed against the stone, invisible in our dark cloaks, holding our breath. 3 figures emerged: Cardinal Torino, Scarlet Zucchetto catching torchlight, Bishop Saviano, his secretary, and the third man. I didn't recognize him. Civilian clothes, expensive suit, not a cleric. They walked past us without a glance, their conversation dropping to whispers, and disappeared toward the Apostolic Palace's eastern wing. Soldier K looked at me, pale. "What do we do?" I stared at the empty corridor. "Nothing," I said. "We saw nothing." But we both knew that was a lie. We had just witnessed something that protocol had no language for. Night 2. The Invisible Network. I couldn't sleep the next day. The Swiss Guard barracks are simple: small rooms, iron beds, crucifixes on the wall, designed for rest, prayer, discipline. But my mind kept circling back to that conversation. We use that. Use what? Use whom? By the time my next shift began, I had convinced myself it was nothing. Political maneuvering, church bureaucracy. The Vatican had survived 2,000 years of such intrigue. But then I saw the pattern. 2,300 hours, same corridor, different door. This time the Sala Bologna, a meeting room used for minor congregational sessions. And this time there were 7 of them. I didn't approach. I simply observed from my station, noting faces as they arrived in intervals, separately, discreetly. Cardinal Torino again, Cardinal Voss from Germany, Archbishop Mendez from Argentina, Bishop Renaud from France, and 3 others I couldn't identify in the dim light. No official meeting had been scheduled. No entry in the daily bulletin. This was invisible. They stayed for 90 minutes. When they emerged, their faces were set like stone, satisfaction mixed with something darker, determination maybe, or ruthlessness. Soldier K wasn't with me that night. I was paired with another guard, a veteran I'll call Soldier M. 20 years in service. He'd seen 3 papacies. "Do you see what I see?" I whispered. He didn't look at me. "I see my duty." Which is what? To guard, not to question. But his jaw was tight. He saw it, too. Night 3. The document. The mistake they made was assuming we were deaf, or maybe they simply didn't care. Night 3. 1:30 a.m. The Apostolic Library's restricted section. I was alone on patrol. Soldier M had been reassigned last minute to St. Peter's Square. Convenient timing, I thought later. The library should have been sealed. Instead, I found the access door propped open with a wooden wedge. Amateur hour. Voices again, but this time I could see them through the gap. 4 men around a table, surrounded by mountains of old books and manuscripts. No, not reading them. Searching them. One of them was Bishop Saviano. The others wore clerical collars, but no distinctive vestments. Priests, likely canonists or theologians. Saviano held up a leather-bound volume, pointing at a passage. Here, Council of Trent, Session 14, the exact phrasing we need. Another priest scribbled notes frantically. And this precedent supports the argument for limiting. Not limiting, Saviano corrected sharply, regulating. The language must be pastoral, protective, for the good of unity. One of the priests hesitated. Your Excellency, the Holy Father has been clear about his position on this matter. Saviano's smile was thin. The Holy Father will be presented with a draft that makes refusal politically untenable. And if he refuses anyway? The bishop set the book down carefully, almost tenderly. Then we ensure the narrative frames his refusal as divisive, harmful, out of touch with the global church. Silence. Then one of the priests, younger, uncertain, "This feels necessary," Saviano finished. "This feels necessary. The church is bigger than one man, even a pope. Sometimes we must protect the institution from well-meaning but misguided leadership."
They returned to their work. I stood frozen in that corridor, heart hammering. This wasn't theology. This was conspiracy. Not against a government or a nation, but against the Vicar of Christ himself. And I had no idea what to do with that knowledge. Night 4. The pressure builds. By day 4, I realized I wasn't the only one noticing. At morning inspection, 3 other guards avoided eye contact with me. Not out of disrespect, out of fear. They knew. We all knew. Something was unfolding in the Vatican's hidden architecture, and speaking about it felt dangerous in ways our training had never prepared us for. That night, Cardinal Torino hosted a private dinner in his apartments. 17 guests, all senior clergy, all aligned with what I was beginning to understand as a coordinated faction. The Swiss Guard provided perimeter security, standard protocol for cardinal residences, but the conversations that drifted through open windows were anything but standard. The African bishops are the weak point, too loyal to the Holy Father personally. Media strategy is critical. We have contacts at 3 major Catholic news outlets. They'll frame it as concern for tradition, unity, stability. Timeline is crucial. Before the consistory, once new cardinals are elevated, the balance shifts. I stood at my post, face expressionless, mind racing. This was real. This was organized. This was happening now. And the Pope had no idea. Or did he? Night 5. The breaking point. The 5th night, everything shattered. I was assigned to the Apostolic Palace's 3rd floor, closest proximity to the papal apartments, highest security clearance, reserved for the most trusted guards. The irony wasn't lost on me. At 02:15, a door opened at the far end of the corridor. The Pope's private study. My hand moved to my weapon instinctively, but then I saw him. Pope Leo XIV himself. Alone. No secretary, no assistant, no entourage. Just an old man in a simple white cassock, walking slowly toward the small chapel reserved for his private prayer. He looked tired. Not the weariness of age, but the exhaustion of burden. He passed within 3 feet from me. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second, and in that glance, I saw something that froze my blood. He knew. He knew what was happening. He knew about the meetings, the pressure, the conspiracy, and he was facing it alone. The Pope entered the chapel. The door closed with a whisper. I stood at my post, a statue in uniform, while inside that chapel, the leader of 1 billion Catholics knelt before God, carrying a weight I couldn't imagine. I wanted to speak. I wanted to tell him what I'd seen, what I'd heard. But I was a guard. Silence was my oath. And so, I said nothing. That silence, that cowardice, would haunt me for days to come. Night 6. The first casualty. The warning came from an unexpected source. One of the Vatican's longtime servants, a woman who had cleaned the secretariat offices for 30 years, approached me in the Belvedere courtyard during a shift change. "You need to be careful," she whispered in Italian, pretending to ask for directions. Excuse me? They know the guards are watching. Someone reported it. You're being monitored. My blood went cold. Who? I don't know, but 2 guards were transferred this morning. Sudden reassignments, Germany and Switzerland. No explanation. She walked away before I could respond. That evening, I confirmed it. Soldier K, my partner from the first night, was gone. Transferred to the Swiss Guard training facility in Switzerland. Effective immediately. No ceremony, no farewell, just erased. And Soldier M, the veteran who'd been with me on night 2, reassigned to the Vatican's summer residence at Castel Gandolfo. Miles away. Silent. Removed. The message was clear. See nothing, know nothing, or disappear. Night 7. The decision. The 7th night, I broke protocol. I filed a report. Not through official channels, those were clearly compromised. Instead, I wrote everything I witnessed on 3 pages of plain paper. Dates, times, names, conversations, the pattern, the conspiracy. And I left it in the one place I knew it might reach the Pope directly, the confessional of his personal confessor, Father Benedetti. It was a desperate gamble. Benedetti was known for his discretion, his integrity, his direct access to the Holy Father. If anyone could get the truth to the Pope without it being intercepted, I slipped the envelope into the confessional's priest-side compartment during a quiet moment in St. Peter's Basilica, sealed with a single word on the outside, Urgente. Then I walked away and waited.
The rain started on the 8th day. Not the gentle Roman rain that tourists photograph, but the kind of downpour that turns cobblestones into rivers and makes the Vatican's ancient drainage systems groan with effort. It felt like an omen. I heard nothing about my report for 48 hours. No acknowledgement, no response, no consequence. Maybe Father Benedetti had destroyed it. Maybe he'd never found it. Maybe I just committed career suicide for nothing. But on the 10th day, everything changed. Day 10, the summons. The note appeared in my barracks locker. Simple, handwritten, unsigned. Chapel of the Swiss Guard, 22 o'clock, alone. I stared at it for 10 minutes, trying to decide if it was a trap. The Chapel of the Swiss Guard is tucked in a corner of the barracks, a small, austere space where we attend mandatory Mass and hold our oath ceremonies, private, isolated, perfect for either a confidential meeting or an ambush. At 21:55, I entered. The chapel was dark except for the sanctuary lamp's red glow. A figure knelt in the front pew. Not Father Benedetti. Someone smaller, older. As I approached, he turned. Monsignor Agostini, Deputy Secretary to the Secretariat of State, one of the Pope's closest administrative officials, a man who'd served in the Vatican for 43 years, spanning 5 papacies. His face was carved with exhaustion. "You wrote the report," he said quietly. "Not a question, a statement." Yes, Monsignor." "Do you know what you've done?" I straightened. "My duty, Monsignor." He smiled sadly. "Your duty, yes. The thing that gets good men killed in this place." My throat tightened. "The Pope needs to know." "The Pope knows everything," Agostini interrupted. "He has known for months. Your report merely confirmed what he already suspected." I stared at him. "Then why hasn't he acted?" "Because acting requires proof. Irrefutable, undeniable public proof. Right now, all he has are shadows and whispers. If he moves against senior cardinals based on hearsay, he splits the church in half." "So he does nothing?" "So he waits," Agostini corrected.
and gathers evidence, which is where you come in. He reached into his cassock and pulled out a small digital recorder, the kind journalists use for interviews. The Holy Father needs documentation, recordings, concrete evidence of these secret meetings, names, dates, exact words, things that cannot be denied or explained away. I looked at the recorder like a live grenade. You're asking me to spy on cardinals? I'm asking you to protect the Church. By betraying the trust of... They betrayed that trust first, when they conspired against the successor of Peter, when they weaponized their authority for political gain, when they decided their vision for the Church mattered more than obedience to the Vicar of Christ. He pressed the recorder into my hand. You have 2 weeks. Document everything. The Holy Father is planning a response, but he needs ammunition. Will you help him? I looked down at the tiny device. My entire career balanced on its weight. My oath, my conscience, my soul. If I'm caught, you'll be expelled immediately, probably worse. The Swiss Guard has a long tradition of martyrdom. You wouldn't be the first to die protecting a pope. Die. The word hung in the chapel air like incense. I closed my fingers around the recorder. Tell the Holy Father I serve him, not them. Agostini's eyes glistened. He made the sign of cross over me. Then God protect you, son, because I can't. Days 11 through 13. The education. The next 72 hours, I learned more about Vatican politics than 6 years of service had taught me. Monsignor Agostini became my invisible mentor. Notes left in prayer books, whispered conversations during shift changes, a crash course in ecclesiastical warfare. He taught me the players. Cardinal Torino, the architect, former nuncio to 3 countries, master of diplomatic pressure, holder of favors owed across continents. Cardinal Voss, the theologian, German efficiency applied to doctrinal arguments, capable of making heresy sound like orthodoxy through careful phrasing. Archbishop Mendez, the strategist, Argentine pragmatist, expert in Latin American episcopal politics, ruthless when necessary. Bishop Saviano, the researcher, canonical lawyer, able to find precedent for anything in 2,000 years of church documents, and a dozen others forming concentric circles of influence. Their goal? To force Pope Leo XIV into issuing a motu proprio, a papal decree that would severely restrict the traditional Latin Mass and effectively reverse his predecessor's more permissive policies. Why? Control, Agostini explained. The old Mass represents decentralization. Priests who can celebrate it don't need permission, don't need modern resources, don't need the bureaucratic apparatus. It threatens the system they've built. But the Pope has already said he won't, which is why they're creating a situation where refusal becomes impossible. They're manufacturing a crisis, incidents, controversies, media pressure, episcopal conferences demanding action. By the time they're done, the Pope will look divisive and stubborn for resisting. Can't he just refuse anyway? Agostini's laugh was bitter. He can, but then they'll call him a bad shepherd, out of touch, polarizing. And when the next conclave comes, which could be tomorrow given his age and health, the Cardinals will remember. They'll elect someone more cooperative. They're planning beyond this papacy? They're always planning beyond this papacy. I felt sick. How long has this been happening? Centuries, Agostini said, simply. The faces change, the cassocks stay red. The game continues. Day 14. First recording. The recorder felt like burning coal in my pocket. That night's meeting was in the Palazzo San Callisto. technically extraterritorial Vatican property, but outside the main complex. Harder to monitor. Clever. 8 Cardinals this time. I wasn't assigned to that building, but I volunteered for an extra shift, claimed I needed overtime to send money home. The guard coordinator didn't question it. The palazzo has excellent acoustics. Old buildings do. I positioned myself in a maintenance corridor that runs behind the primary conference room, found a heating vent, and activated the recorder. The quality was surprisingly good. Cardinal Torino opened the meeting. "Gentlemen, we've reached a critical juncture. The Holy Father's recent appointments suggest he's building a counter-coalition. We must accelerate. The German bishops are prepared to issue a joint statement expressing concern about liturgical division. It's already drafted. Argentina is more complicated. Many bishops remain personally loyal to the Pope. We'll need to work around them rather than through them." A voice that I didn't recognize. "What about the Americans?" Torino. "Split. The progressive bishops are with us. The conservatives will resist, but they're isolated. The media narrative is already framing them as reactionaries. I've prepared a canonical brief arguing that unrestricted access to the Old Mass creates parallel ecclesial communities, which canon law prohibits. It's airtight. Legally airtight means nothing if the Pope simply ignores it. He won't ignore 17 episcopal conferences all saying the same thing simultaneously. That's not stubbornness, that's schism." Long silence. Then Torino. "We proceed as planned. Phase 1, media pressure. Phase 2, episcopal statements. Phase 3, formal petition to the Holy Father. If he refuses..." "Phase 4?" someone asked. "We discuss Phase 4 only if necessary." The meeting continued for 90 minutes. I recorded every word. When I finally emerged from that corridor, my hands were shaking so badly I could hardly hold the device. This wasn't politics. This was a coup. Dressed in vestments and justified by canon law, but a coup nonetheless. Days 18 through 17. The pattern reveals itself. 3 more meetings, 3 more recordings, each one worse than the last. They discussed planting stories in Catholic media about divisive traditionalist priests, coordinating Episcopal Conference statements.
Days 15 to 17, the pattern reveals itself. 3 more meetings, 3 more recordings, each one worse than the last. They discussed planting stories in Catholic media about divisive traditionalist priests, coordinating Episcopal Conference statements to create appearance of global consensus, timing the pressure campaign to coincide with the Pope's upcoming apostolic visit to Africa, when he'd be away from Rome and unable to respond quickly. Identifying and isolating cardinals loyal to the Pope through strategic promotions to distant dioceses. Preparing a backup plan involving an appeal to the College of Cardinals if the Pope proved obstinate. That last point made my blood run cold. Were they actually contemplating? No, impossible. Even they wouldn't dare. Would they? Day 18. The warning. The note in my locker was written in shaky handwriting. "They know someone is listening. Stop now." Unsigned. But I recognized the handwriting from chapel missalettes. Father Benedetti. The Pope's confessor was warning me to abort. I met with Monsignor Agostini that night in the darkness of St. Peter's colonnade. "Did you send Benedetti to warn me off?" "No, that was his own decision. He thinks you're in danger." "Am I?" Agostini hesitated. "Yes,
They haven't identified you specifically yet, but they know security has been compromised. They're conducting an internal investigation, questioning guards, reviewing duty rosters. How long do I have? Days, maybe hours. I looked out at the rain-slicked stones of the square. Then we need to move quickly. The Holy Father wants one more piece of evidence, the most important one, which is, Cardinal Torino is meeting with a journalist tomorrow, someone from Il Messaggero. They're going to leak a fabricated story about the Pope's health, suggest he's mentally declining, not capable of making sound decisions. It's designed to soften public support before they launch the formal campaign. Where's the meeting? Caffè Sant'Eustachio, 1500, outdoor seating. That's a public cafe. I can't exactly stand there in uniform with a recorder. Agostini smiled grimly. Then don't wear the uniform. Day 19. The cafe recording. I'd never been out of uniform in Rome. Sitting in civilian clothes at a cafe table, wearing sunglasses and pretending to read La Repubblica, I felt absurdly exposed. The recorder was in my jacket pocket, microphone disguised as a button. Spy movie nonsense, except this was real. Cardinal Torino arrived exactly on time, 1500, in simple black clerical attire, no scarlet, trying to be inconspicuous. The journalist was a woman in her 40s, sharp eyes, expensive handbag, professional skeptic's expression. I was 3 tables away, close enough. The recorder caught everything. Torino, I appreciate your discretion in this matter. Journalist, Your Eminence, I need to be clear. I can't print rumors. I need something concrete. Torino, of course. What I'm sharing is based on observations from multiple Vatican officials. The Holy Father has been showing signs of confusion, forgetting appointments, repeating himself in private meetings. His personal physician is concerned. All lies. I'd seen the Pope just days ago. Sharp, clear, focused. Journalist, can you provide names, officials willing to go on the record? Torino, not publicly, but I can arrange background confirmations, 3 sources minimum. And these sources will attest to mental decline? They'll attest to concerning behavior consistent with age-related cognitive issues. The journalist wrote notes. When do you want this to run? Next week, Tuesday edition, front page if possible. That's aggressive timing. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. The faithful deserve to know. The meeting continued. Details, coordination, strategy. 15 minutes of calculated character assassination, all captured digitally. When Torino finally left, I sat frozen at my table, coffee untouched. This was it, the smoking gun, proof of active conspiracy to undermine the Pope through media manipulation. I paid my bill and walked back towards Vatican City through the rain, the recorder weighing 1,000 pounds in my pocket.
The call came on day 28, not a phone call, a coded message in a letter from family that wasn't my family. The weather in Rome has cleared. Your presence is requested for the festival. No festival was scheduled. It meant, come home. It's time. I boarded a flight the next morning. Day 29, the return. Rome looked different, or maybe I looked at it differently. The streets seemed to hum with tension, Catholic news outlets buzzing with strange stories, traditionalist websites filled with alarm, progressive commentators smugly predicting the Pope's inevitable restriction of the old Mass. The media campaign had begun, just as the recordings predicted.
I reported to the Swiss Guard barracks at 1800, expecting to resume normal duty. Instead, I was met by the commandant himself. "You're not on the regular rotation. Special assignment. Apostolic Palace. Direct papal security." "Sir?" "Don't ask questions. Report to Monsignor Agostini immediately." The commandant's face was unreadable, but his eyes held something I'd never seen before: respect and fear. The Apostolic Palace, night. Agostini met me in a side corridor, grabbed my arm, and pulled me into an empty office. "It's happening, tonight. The Pope is convening an emergency meeting of the full College of Cardinals. Every cardinal in Rome, 47 of them." "What will he do?" "Expose everything. The recordings, the conspiracy, the media manipulation, all of it." My heart raced. "They'll deny it. They'll say the recordings are fabricated." "Which is why you need to be there, in the room, as a witness." "Me? I'm just a guard." "You're the one who risked everything to get the truth. The Pope wants you present." "Where's the meeting?" "Sala Regia, 2100, 1 hour from now." The Sala Regia, the Royal Hall, one of the Vatican's most magnificent rooms. Renaissance frescoes, soaring ceilings, the space where popes once received kings. Now it would host a reckoning. The gathering, 2045. The cardinals began arriving at 2030. Confused, irritated, some alarmed. Emergency meetings weren't announced 15 minutes in advance unless something catastrophic had occurred. I stood at attention near the entrance in full ceremonial uniform, halberd in hand, watching them file in. Cardinal Torino arrived looking thunderous. Cardinal Voss appeared composed but wary. Archbishop Mendez whispered urgently into his phone before entering. The loyalists came too, cardinals I recognized from papal events, men who'd shown genuine affection for Leo XIV. They looked worried. At 2055, Monsignor Agostini appeared at my side. "When the Pope enters, you will follow. Stand along the wall. Don't speak unless directly addressed." "Monsignor, what if this goes wrong?" "Then we'll have front row seats to schism." Not comforting. At 2100 precisely, the great doors opened. Pope Leo XIV entered. Not in elaborate vestments, but in simple white cassock and zucchetto. A shepherd, not a monarch. But his face, I'd never seen such resolve. The cardinals fell silent, 47 princes of the church, and every one of them suddenly unsure. The Pope walked to the throne but didn't sit. He stood. "Brothers, thank you for coming on such short notice. What I am about to share will shock you. Some of you will be angry, some of you will feel betrayed, but all of you will leave here knowing the truth." He gestured toward a technician I hadn't noticed, a young priest with a laptop and speakers. "For the past 3 weeks, I have been made aware of a coordinated effort to manipulate my decisions as Pope, not through honest counsel or theological debate, but through deception, media manipulation, and political pressure." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Cardinal Torino's face went pale. "Rather than respond with accusations or assumptions, I chose to gather evidence, irrefutable evidence, and now you will hear it." The Pope nodded to the technician. The first recording began. The recordings, truth unveiled. The audio quality was crystal clear, every word, every pause, every conspiratorial whisper. The cardinals' faces transformed as they listened. First recording. The meeting in the Sala Bologna. Cardinal Torino's voice unmistakable. "We cannot allow him to give more space to the traditionalists." Second recording. The library session. Bishop Saviano explaining how to make refusal politically untenable. Third recording. The discussion of isolating loyal cardinals through strategic reassignments. Fourth recording. Plans to coordinate 17 episcopal conferences to create false consensus. Fifth recording. The discussion of Phase 4 if the Pope proved obstinate. And finally, the cafe recording. Cardinal Torino's voice arranging the fabricated health story with the journalist. The room erupted.